Good morning, and welcome to Comic Book Nation, the only podcast that does it all for geek culture. I'm one of the hosts, Janelle Wheeler, and I'm joined by the amazing regular hosts and our main host, Kofi Outlaw and Matthew Aguilar.
I'm back. Yeah.
Yes, you get to introduce your pal then.
Of course, it'd have to be some FS this morning as soon as we get on the mic. But yeah, I'm here, and this is Comic Book Nation, as Janelle did in her wonderful intro. I am Kofi Outlaw, your other host, and with us today we have a special guest, one of my old buddies, one of our original followers, fans, who has grown into a podcaster himself. Mr. Kyle Naronha is with us, host of the Film Realists podcast. What's going on, man?
Not much. Thank you so much for having me. I get to be on this side. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
get
was
to
about to
record
say-
with you live. I pestered you as a fan for so long that eventually you gave in, and here I am now.
I literally don't hear any pestering. I can tune all that out. We had a good time on the last one, and I was like, we're living in a different era here. Like, people think like I make these choices, but no, we're in a whole different era where we can actually have you on. In our previous era, we weren't allowed to have anybody on. Like, other shows could pull NFL players and all kinds of crazy-ish, and they could pull everybody from every other show on YouTube, but we, for some weird mandate, I was not allowed to talk to any of my friends. We were just basically kept in the dark room. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, am I lying? We had one we had a couple.
You're right. No, we had to make-
I mean, it's over now. We can put it all out there. We had a couple spectacular guests on this show. We had Joe Manganiello. We had Vincent D'Onofrio. We had some big time numbers, and then it was like no guests after that.
It was weird. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, weird. Real weird in that era, right? You
Yeah.
know, weird times. So, but that stuff, that is all over. So now that it's over, we can talk with our friends, and, that should start right here with Kyle. So welcome on the show. I've done the Film Realists multiple times. I think, Matt, have you done it? I forget. Has Matt ever been on? Oh,
open invitation.
That's the first grenade of the show.
I also found out Kyle is a fellow Power Rangers fan, and I'm very.
Oh, that's an
very
extra big
adorable.
grenade now.
Very
Oh, man.
I get into
Putting
the
you right
room
in
and they're showing their
Yeah,
swag.
we're just
Be careful
starting
how
the
you
tension early. Welcome. You didn't know what show you were coming on. We put you in the hot seat immediately. But I'm just kidding. Kyle's here. We are happy because we have a lot to talk about today. Listen, this is a great tee up for your show because our regular fan Brywood in the comments has pointed out there are a lot of movies. We are doing Peak Geek TV Part Trey this time. This is our third installment of Peak Geek TV. Yeah, there were movies that opened this week. But look, guys, it's hard for us to get out to the theater to begin with. And I love the movies that come out this week, and I'm going to love them on streaming. It's going to be a great streaming month in April/May. And I'm looking forward to it, for one. But yeah, there are new movies out, and I'm sure, Kyle, you're going to be talking up some of them. There's Opus, Black Bag. We're going to get to the streaming one, the easy one, the Electric State. So we'll be talking about the Electric State today. Obviously, we're also going to be talking about the latest from Daredevil Born Again. We also got to talk about the end of Invincible Season 3. What else, of course, is going on TV and the amount of shows that we're getting that kind of either fall in our wheelhouse or very close to our wheelhouse. Like White Lotus, I consider my wheelhouse. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care. That Mike White's weird enough that I consider him to be geek adjacent. I'm in. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, we got to get into some geek news. So let's start up at the top. Oh, I made myself talk first. Man, ever since Matt cracked my ego and was like,
segue to yourself.
Yeah, you should let us talk too in segments. And I was like, you know what? That is a great idea. But here I am throwing back to myself. I got to make a new appointment. All right, but no, I'm just kidding. I wasn't letting anybody else do this. I'm not letting any of y'all do this. I'm going to do this. So Captain America Brave New World is officially a box office crash out. Not quite a crash out. That's dramatic, but it's not going to be Marvel's comeback kid at all. Right now, it is sitting at about 370 plus million worldwide. It had a production budget of at least 180 million. And I don't believe that number because I know Winter Soldier had a production budget of upwards towards that, like 150 to 180. And I know what we got in that movie, and I know how much they reshot of this movie. So I wouldn't be surprised if this movie was closer to like 300 million. And that ain't coming back. We know that. So Captain America Brave New World is not going to be that movie that brings us back. And really what I want to just ask in this segment is, I know the nobility of the fine Canadians was on our side in this. So Kyle's exempt from this. But why didn't you all support Captain America? Why don't you support Black Cat? Why did you let the box office get like this? I'm going to drink my coffee. My co-hosts, you can answer this question for the entire world.
Oh man, Janelle, you want that first? You want me
No,
to
I do
follow that
not.
story? All right, so I actually,
let's like, okay,
number one,
I'm throwing
supported
you guys
it.
in the hot water. I'm just
I
messing
did
with you.
support it. I went to see it.
Let's ask a real serious question. What is the last Marvel movie you've missed in the theaters?
This one.
None of them.
Before
Oh wait, no,
this-
sorry. That's technically not correct. There was a pandemic, so I did watch Black Widow on Disney Plus. So I guess that's the only one. But I've seen the
man.
rest of them.
I did not see this one. I
But
wanted to, but my friends went without me. And then I was like, I only get out of the house once in a blue moon. And I want it to be like with friends. I don't want to go by myself and sit somewhere when I never
Okay.
get to leave the house. So I had
Ant-Man?
Yeah.
That might have been the one I missed. I think I missed
Three?
Ant-Man.
or the first one.
Yeah, Quantumania.
Okay,
think
that's fair.
think
I
I'll
mean,
pick it.
cards on the table. I didn't pay to see it. As Kofi knows, this was the first press screening I went to. So technically, Marvel didn't get any of my money. So I did see it. It just, there was no transaction.
Would you have paid to see it?
Yeah, I mean, the film relist, the whole thing is it's a podcast from a complete nobody that's hopefully for somebody. So
Yeah.
regularly, I'm there at the Thursday 7 o'clocks. So yeah, I would have paid to see it. It was the movie of that weekend. Clearly, very few people saw it over its long run, but it just didn't have the legs. Well, and in terms of box office numbers, it had a historic second weekend drop off. I believe it was 68%
Wow.
between the first 2 weeks. So
Yeah,
word
I
of
don't even
mouth
think
got
that's the
around.
biggest, though.
The military base Zoom background that Kofi so lovely dubbed. I think a lot of people saw that in the first weekend and decided, no.
I mean, I was joking, but like, I'm also not. I also love that you phonetically spelled your name in our rundown here. You know we weren't going to read that, right? Like,
I don't
Oh
know.
wait, that was
Yes.
him? I thought that was you for like your
no,
notes.
guests have no additions to the rundown. We don't read any of that. We're like, who is this phantom writer?
That's
But
amazing.
Kyle, now we're just going to call you Noronya. Noronya.
I
Let's say that
appreciate
every
the
single time.
phonetic spelling. Thank you.
It's in all my work emails. It says my name and then it's broken down into sounds.
That's amazing.
Wait, what do people normally say? Like, what's the
Oh,
normal?
everything. I mean, phonetically, if you're looking at it just as English, I get nor on. I can't even think about it now. Nor on ha, just because of the phonetics of the way it's spelled. But it's Portuguese in origin, so it's ya at the end instead of ha. I mean, I got Narnia once in elementary school. Like the things I've heard with my last name, it's everything to the point where all of my classmates would go, "That can't be you," and it usually was. So I just, it happens very often that it's mispronounced. I mean, typically, if I tell somebody my name, they'll remember. But if you're reading it first, that's usually where the mispronunciation comes.
Well, we got it now. It's saved in the phonetics.
Wait, hold on. Hang on a second. What? This has just gone completely off the rails. I told you, Kofi, when you said you were going to have Kyle on, I said, this is a terrible idea. This is an absolutely terrible idea. I know, like, we invited Rob to come on and say hi, but he knew this was going to be a disaster. So he's just like, I'm going to take my to like school and go get my Honda fixed instead.
This is true. This is what This is Ben Kendrick. Ben Kendrick has entered the chat.
This guy's like, This guy asked me the other day, I was like, so I hear you're gonna be on our show or whatever. And he goes, how did you know that? I'm like, there's nothing that happens at Comic Book.
Do I still owe you that money, Ben?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, you plugged your own podcast about 7 times while you've been on here. So I get it. No, I just was just hopping in to say hello, and we're obviously happy to have you. And Kyle's a great guy, so if anybody is looking for a podcast that is from a regular guy for regular people, I know you already said it earlier.
You even got the tagline in.
I know. Well, I've been everybody have been on the least, I think, because Kyle always asked me to come on, and then I just
Ben's too popular for me. He's always busy. He comes on for Transformers, and then I don't hear from him until the next Transformers movie's coming out. So if he comes on for Superman or Jurassic World Rebirth, I would be surprised. Because I watched all of whatever what was it called? You told me it was the Clone Wars of Jurassic Park, and it was not.
Oh, Chaos Theory.
No, the one before that. Camp Cretaceous. That's what it was called. I watched all of that on your recommendation.
Wait, are you crapping on Camp Cretaceous right now?
Yeah, how are you hating on Camp Cretaceous?
No, I didn't say it was bad, but in terms of comparing it to Clone Wars, I don't know if that's necessarily fair.
That is a great.
I mean, that's a crazy. But you're talking to the guy who gave Transformers 3 4 stars. You gotta weigh everything on that.
Wait,
scale.
which one? Some of them are really good.
Wait, the Transformers movies?
He gave
Dark
Dark
of
of
the
the Moon.
Okay, I gave Dark of the Moon a very high score. I also Extinction though. I did give Age of Extinction too high of a score, I think.
Ew.
We can't go down the rabbit hole of things Ben gave too many stars to. Like,
yeah, Dark of the Moon, I gave
any eye question. Let's just leave that Age of Extinction and its Romeo Juliet laws out of this. Like,
yeah, I mean that is not not that it didn't age well. I don't think it ever.
I see what you did there. It was terrible. It was absolutely awful.
Yeah, it was not a good movie.
John Smith, we don't know. We're trying to work on a lot of technical details. We've had weeks lately where we didn't even have a live show. We're looking into the Twitch thing. You're on YouTube. Just settle on YouTube. You're here. You're yelling at us constantly through YouTube. So we'll be back on Twitch. Do you work for Twitch? Because if you don't work for Twitch, don't glaze Twitch. They're not going to pay you. Like, just calm down. Oh, my God. Sorry.
I'm going to let the fact that you use the term glaze.
I'll see y'all over at Twitch. I like Twitch better.
Yeah. Jane will handle... We have a Twitch agent. She's awesome. If you miss us on Twitch, you can have fun with Janelle in a very distilled, less chaotic manner. She's sweet and friendly and all awesome. And
play a lot of Mario.
None of the things that I've read in about myself in our 1-star reviews. So you don't have to deal with any of that. You could we'll just distill out the good parts, okay?
Kofi, let's be real. I've gotten the 1-star reviews as well.
Oh, no, it's you and me. Everybody loves Matt. It's you and me. Everybody's like, I hate this chick. Who does this dude think he is? Like, it's just like...
But the brown guy rules.
Everybody's like, yo, homie with the pompadour.
Yeah.
I mess with him, though. Yeah.
It's just my family members commenting on.
This is what I did with my days off this week. I read our 1-star reviews to make myself feel good because that was my self-care.
I'll let you guys do your thing. I just wanted to come on and crash Cal's party for a second, but yeah.
So full backstory. We should probably explain. Kyle's been
it's too late for that.
A listener of ours since Ben and I were on the Screen Rant Underground, one of those first entertainment podcasts from way back when, and
it was the before times.
Yeah, he was a regular fan and commenter, like I said, and then he's kind of grown. Now he's a whole ass dad and runs his own podcast and does all this stuff. So yeah, it's awesome to see, man. We love to see it. So Ben wanted to hop on and surprise you too when he heard you were coming.
Yeah,
I've never seen this background from Ben though. Normally it's in his basement and I'm
sending me the Twitch
ceiling.
I told you when you record, it's like 7 or 8 o'clock at night my time, and like my kid's asleep. I share a room with her, but this is the background that normally my camera does this head thing too. All right.
Yeah, we should probably go and do a show so I can probably go back and get to work so we can probably all have our jobs. Yeah.
All right. You guys have fun.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. See you, buddy.
All right. So that was fun. That was a little surprise, but
That was great.
getting back to the more dour subject of Captain America. Yeah, so I mean, I think this was a perfect storm of factors. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I think that this movie and the delays, it killed this thing because it came out at exactly the worst possible time. I don't know, like, you know, I don't know if you looked at like MSNBC or CNN lately, but it ain't going good for us right now. So I don't think the tides of the social tides were with us on this one. And I don't think I saw this catch on and be a phenomenon like Black Panther. I don't think it was good enough as a movie, to be fair, to do that. I took my 6-year-old to see it, and it was just too boring and politically dour for him and too stupid for me. So, like, it was just kind of like in that middle of, you know, a female friend once told me, you know, you can be very ugly, you can be very attractive. What you don't want to be is kind of in the middle, like, because then you're just kind of like invisible. At least you can do something with the other two. Then that's very true. Hey, you can be very ugly and be a horror. You could get paid as a horror movie monster, man. Like, you can look at homie who played the Offspring and whatchamacallit, Alien. Like, you know, there you go. Boom.
I just love that this is the type of nuggets of life advice and knowledge that people get from this show.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there it is.
Amazing. It's great.
I mean, if anywhere that is truer, it is the internet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can act very ugly or you can be very attractive, and then you're gonna do well. If you try to just be a normal person in the middle, you're nothing. So, I think it was a lot of factors. The movie wasn't that good. The cultural timing wasn't that good. MCU kind of enthusiasm isn't that high. People are not investing. You know, I was making a joke about you two, like, you know, underhandedly calling you like racist or something, but that's not what I'm really kind of concerned about. What I'm really concerned about is that this didn't feel like appointment viewing to people anymore. And that's kind of like my takeaway for this. That is, the MCU really has lost a step in the sense that this was supposed to be this game-changing, this update on the Captain America arc of the MCU, this game-changing thing for it, and people did not feel compelled to go see this whatsoever, and certainly not to go see it again. And so that's it. You know, that's it for me. We've reached the point where even the Marvels, with its, you know, 3 female leads, you know, women of color, blah blah blah, like, still felt like something you had to go out, or at least was something to go out and see. We've lost that now. And so I don't know what that means for Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four. I'm less certain about these movies, even though I personally like both trailers and the marketing campaigns and how they're building these and selling them. But I don't know if everybody else is going to feel the same way. I think for the general public, it could be over with Endgame, but right now, like, it could have been like, yeah, Endgame was this great thing. The Infinity Saga was this great thing, but I don't know if it's lasted since then. And I don't think there's anything. That's why we were talking about the leaks, right? And as it's gone on and those leaks are still up, I now know more than ever that these are intentional leaks. Like, without question, these leaks were intentional, because now we're into the bargain basement hype building kind of tactics we got to figure out, because it's not there naturally. And there's nothing left to sell. Like, there's no event, there's no build up, there's no kind of chain of events. All of that's done. It's all been screwed up. So, like, where are we at now?
Wow.
But that's me, and I always have the happiest take. So why don't you guys weigh in with some positivity?
Well, I don't mean to continue to dig this hole, because I agree with you, but just in terms of the anticipation behind all of the different projects, like, I've got friends and family who were on the train all the way through the Infinity Saga, right? And that momentum build over time, that regardless of if you've been invested in the MCU, I think Disney Plus, similar to what it did for Star Wars, kind of muddled down the expectations for those franchises. And with Captain America, or I guess it was called that at the end of it, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier, until I got a title in the last 3 seconds of the final episode, already had edit problems, and you're building off of the Disney Plus stuff, which for a lot of people, at least I know my friends who are not invested in all this, they fell off long ago, because even as hardcore fans, I find it really difficult to sell these shows to people because they don't feel necessary to the larger narrative, right? And this is coming off of this. We talked about this, and I know y'all did as well. This movie's a sequel to 4 different movies, right?
Yeah.
Eternals, the reception from audiences, not so great, right? We're continuing a plot thread from a 17-year-old movie with The Incredible Hulk, which was not a massive success when it came out in 2008. And the trajectory of all of the other projects that don't have long-standing fans. Like, I was kind of going over the box office numbers as you were telling us we should have seen this movie, Kofi, is that outside of Guardians and Deadpool and Wolverine, it's been a mess, right? I remember there was a really funny report that Ant-Man and the Wasp, which Matthew didn't go see, made like $1 in terms of how Hollywood finances are always a magic trick to begin with. But in terms of all of the other major projects, Black Panther Wakanda Forever had a lot of anticipation behind it because of how they were going to deal with the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman. And then you had the conclusion to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with James Gunn was fired and then rehired. Just kidding. You can be a troll 10 years ago as long as you said you're sorry. And that was the whole selling point of that franchise. And then Deadpool and Wolverine was its own cultural phenomenon because you had Hugh Jackman in the yellow suit. It was the first R-rated MCU movie that they've made. And then Captain America also coming out in February, which for such a long time, January and February is where movies went to die. It wasn't until you had the occasional MCU movie that broke that trend. But unfortunately, I think a lot of the marketing for this, people weren't really sold on what it was going to be. And I know you talked about it on CBN and we talked about it, where is this the last vestige of, they weren't really sure what they were doing. And I know we're going to be talking about some other stuff where it seems like the creative overhaul was done before it was, oh crap, this thing sucks, we have to fix it.
Yeah, I agree. With a lot of that, actually, I am going to make things a little more positive. I feel like, because I do think that while this one was kind of one, when we were talking about box office like predictions for this movie, I don't think any of us ever kind of saw this as a $1 billion thing, right? I mean, we had that whole conversation about like what could hit $1 billion, all those kinds of things, and this was not anywhere close to that. Even then, this is still disappointing compared to what I thought it would do, but I always thought it would be kind of in that like 600 million range. Like that's kind of what I was predicting, maybe high fives. For it to not reach that, that's a disappointment. I have seen some terms bantied about as disaster, and even on our own comment section, disaster and those other things. And I don't know. I look at Borderlands and go, nah, that's a disaster. I don't see this in that same realm.
Yeah,
you know
let's
what I mean?
chill.
We got to learn what words mean again. Okay, like there's a little bit of
this
that.
This ain't the Jimmy days. This ain't the Jimmy V days. We ain't gonna start just throwing words around because.
Yeah, so like that's how I I'm a little more measured in that regard. What I will say though is that I really like your point about this being like the sequel to 4 different movies, and most of them were also not well received. This very much felt like, hey, we have 2 years worth of homework that we need to catch up on, and we need to throw it all in one thing and get it out there. And this was cleanup. This really felt like in those regards, like as far as the MCU stuff, the Eternals of it, all those things, those were all things of, okay, what is the minimal amount we can refer to this to move past it or to just move the ball forward? And the other things that were really high points, another thing I really want us to stop saying is we are back, or we are so back. We gotta stop.
We're so very back.
Oh, we gotta stop saying that. Okay, about everything in general, but please God for the MCU. I heard it on Daredevil, and look, Daredevil's we're gonna talk about Daredevil later in the
Ooh,
show.
where are
but
you going
I'm
with
saying,
this?
Like, we gotta stop saying that because it always backfires. And I don't think Fantastic Four. My hesitancy right now is more with Fantastic Four because it is such a new property for those not diehard Marvel fans, right? For the mainstream group that the Infinity Saga captured, and you got all those theater reactions, people losing their mind when the portals open. Half of those people don't know who the hell the Fantastic Four are, and you're trying to capture those people, and so that's the one I'm a little like more worried about as far as box office. I think Thunderbolts, that's the one for me, is like the ultimate litmus test. Like, that's the one that feels the most like previous MCU, captures that Marvel magic, at least from the trailers, and everything between it. Looks like it's going to move things forward in an actual substantial way, introducing key characters. That does actually feel like, to me, if that comes out and does not do well, I will be bummed. But I feel like that will kind of be the real testing ground for, hey, does this thing have legs for the next 5 years, 10 years? So, yeah. Oh, you're muted, but Kobe.
So I'll jump in here. I'm just I'm actually very much looking forward to seeing this, and my friends who went to go see it very much enjoyed it. I just truly, it was a circumstance of like, I could not get to the theater with my child, and it is what it is. So to me, nothing has fallen off. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I feel like I will probably enjoy it because even the films that people don't go crazy over with MCU, I enjoy. So I'm not very hard to please. And I'm looking forward to this when it comes out on streaming.
Now, did you like Secret Invasion?
No, okay, yeah, that was the one that I was just
okay. I'm just calling a spade a spade.
No, you're so right. And I also did not like Falcon Winter Soldier very much. It's not that I hated it, I just didn't love it. Those are
all right, so
I'll move into our next little story here.
Your takeaway, was your takeaway that you have some of your best friends have seen Captain America? That was
some good friends of mine have seen it, and they.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
Still, I'm just messing with you. Go ahead. Let's move on. Oh boy, you all hailed that cap, and then I will never forget it. But anyway,
well, don't say all hail before it.
I said failed. I said y'all failed. Y'all failed. Y'all failed him. Let me tell you now, y'all failed that man. He went out there to fight for this country, and y'all failed him. But let's go to something a little bit more on the other side of the spectrum. The redhead side.
So this is actually really exciting news. I'm kind of pumped about this. It has come out that Stranger Things star Sadie Sink is reportedly joining the new Superman film, Superman 4. Deadline reported it.
Spider-Man.
Did I say Superman?
Twice.
Oh my God, Spider-Man! I'm sorry, my brain is so messed up from that comic.
Okay, I've done it. Twice.
I can't stop.
Yeah.
When we get to the comic, it has ruined my life. Anyways. Sorry, Spider-Man. Jeez Louise, I swear to gosh. So anyways, I'm actually really excited about this.
There goes another 1-star comment.
Yes. How many can we get?
I've already got mine for the day for sure, so it's okay.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm actually really excited about this. We don't know what her character is going to be. People are saying Jean Grey. It could be the introduction to the X-Men. And I'm kind of all about this. The only thing that I would be very bummed about is if she was Black Cat. Like, please don't make her Black Cat. Like, I don't envision her as Black Cat. But yeah, I'm actually really pumped about this. And I'm under the impression that they're going to start phasing out MJ. And because obviously, like, no one remembers who he is in this world, and bringing in new characters and using it as an opportunity to introduce the mutants, I think would be really cool. Otherwise, the only other redhead we know is MJ, and we can't do a second are we getting really weird? Are we bringing in like multiverse? Are we done with that?
Well, no, I mean, this is all where we're going. I mean, people are crazy. People are so funny. Like, they see Sadie Sink as a redhead, and they're like, "It must be MJ." It's like, we got an MJ. They're like, "No, we're getting TEI MJ out of there. We're getting real MJ." And it's like, oh my god, guys.
God. People say
No, there's
this.
a lot of theories.
The
Jean Grey
voices
is
today
one,
are
but
on point.
like, I mean, we just sifted through. I was like, is there even a single like significant comic story about Spider-Man and Jean Grey? And I couldn't dig one up. I was like, I
Nah,
don't
not
think
really.
so. Another
Okay.
possibility is Firestar, because Kevin
Mm.
Feige is a known kind of lover of the classic Spider-Man and his amazing friend, you know,
Yes,
Rogue
taste.
Spider-Man, Iceman, and Firestar. That would be kind of cool. I would be down with that in a very retro, kitschy way to have Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman working together.
Oh my
Like, and that's
God.
your X-Men tie-in, like right there. Like, that'd be dope. Yeah, the Amazing Friends reference. And Firestar is also a really good character because thanks to the awesome Krakoa era of X-Men, took that nothing burger character and kind of made her one of the more
Whoa.
centrally interesting.
Whoa. We don't have to disrespect her in the compliment. That was a
Firestar was
backhanded
never
nothing burger of a character? Firestar is not a
Firestar.
nothing burger of a character.
Okay. Anyway.
Jeez, catching strays.
Are you arguing against my point that Krakoa made her 10 times more interesting as like this double agent Avenger / X-Men
Facts.
that like
I
nobody
100%
remembers as a
agree.
mutant half the time? Like that was the most interesting Firestar's ever been. But anyway, so that's a possibility. I'm surprised nobody said, like, nobody can imagine Sadie Sink getting a hair dye job and being Gwen Stacy.
That's a
or
tradition.
Spider. Yeah.
You take someone who is naturally a
who's
redhead and you dye their hair
dye
blonde.
their hair
It's
blonde.
happened
Exactly.
twice already.
So
Bryce Dallas
yeah.
Howard and Emma Stone.
Yep, and Emma Stone. So you keep that going, and because you can make that conversion, and you then make her Gwen Stacy or Spider Gwen, like, you know, or Ghost Spider, like we said, all of this multiverse stuff is going to be happening. It would be very interesting if, it'd be very interesting because where did we leave off in Spider-Verse, where Gwen was gathering up a bunch of people, right, to go and save Miles' ass? It'd be very interesting if this movie concluded with her being the live action Spider-Gwen and being like, oh, they
That
come
would
to
be
get Tom Holland's Peter Parker to then be in Beyond the Spider-Verse and help save Miles' ass and establish that bond there before Secret Wars, that'd be great. Because remember, Spider-Man 4 is in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, and so there's a lot of question about like why this will, like, what this will be. That would be crazy. Now that would redeem so much of this if they pulled that off. No Way Home, Spider-Verse, you know, all of this other multiverse stuff. If you had that thread of Gwen making the hop from the animated films to the live action, getting Holland, bringing him into the animated films, and bringing them all back to the live action films, that'd be sick. Like, that'd be really sick. But I don't know. She could be anything. It could be something stupid, like she's like, what's her name? Liz or something, like some other side.
Liz Allen was already in Homecoming.
Oh, right. You're right.
She's Michael Keaton's
the
daughter.
homegirl. Yeah. All right. So
Betty Brant.
There's a lot of things. Betty Brant. Yeah. There's just a lot of things that they could do with this.
I wouldn't
give her the Janelle job and make her Silver Sable. Who knows?
Sable. I wouldn't even be mad if they did, like, it doesn't have to be this character, because I could see, like, I like Sadie Sink, so like I could see her playing a bunch of different characters, right? But the Ultimate Spider-Man run did an amazing job with a Kate Pryde. I will always call her Kate now, thanks to Marauders. Kate Pryde and Peter Parker kind of relationship storyline, and they messed with that a lot, and it was fantastic. Credit to the great Brian Michael Bendis for that. But I wouldn't be mad at doing something like that and bringing. I'm okay with it being someone from the X-Men side of things. That would be interesting. I don't know if they'll do it. Like, a part of me still feels like I know they've mentioned adamantium, whatever. Until I see an X-Man on the screen that isn't in its own little pocket over here, like Deadpool and Wolverine, because to me that is a separate thing. I know they went through a whole movie connected. That's a separate thing. All right. So until I see it in an MCU movie, a real MCU movie, I'm kind of like still like I don't believe them when they say, "Oh, they're coming. It's happening." I don't believe them until I see it. So I don't know. But I am interested. I have seen the stuff about like phasing like MJ out, and I'm like, that's nuts. How are you gonna phase Zendaya? Like Zendaya's like one of the biggest stars on the planet. Like, unless she just
you run that Ultimate Spider-Man play after this. You don't phase her out. Whatever happens,
like,
you get back eventually to that Ultimate Spider-Man play. I mean, they're getting married in real life. What are we doing here? Like, you just
Zendaya.
Yeah, that's like the couple of a generation right now. So just throw them out there and let them do the married phase of their married life on screen. Like, anyway. So I'm also curious because this is Destin Daniel Cretton who's doing this movie, who did Shang-Chi. And I think one thing we all agreed when we heard his announcement was that what he did with that movie in terms of stunt work, action, kinds like that is like, we want to see that applied to Spider-Man. A more martial arts minded Spider-Man is actually really cool to us. So like, I'm more leaning towards that Spider-Gwen theory because I'm thinking of, or Black Cat or something like that, because it has to be somebody who's going to keep up with that kind of level of action that I think Cretton's imagining for this movie. Like, they're not going to throw in Spider-Man doing all kinds of crazy martial arts tricks and then be like, so Betty Brant, let's just stop on the street and talk to you for a minute. Like, I don't see that. I think, like, if anything, and the natural kind of progression of this story is Peter finding it's kind of that meta thing about an actor, right? Like, this is going to be a level of Peter Parker maybe having to learn to find love within his own bubble world of superheroes or whatever it is, or finding his place there rather than trying to be a normal guy, because that all got kind of lost. So, yeah, I'm interested to see. But all right. Matt, we're real quick. I think we can make this one real quick because we are so back.
Stop.
We are so
You even used it
back.
in the show. Yep. Yes. So John Wick will soon possibly have a John Wick 5. It is confirmed to be in development. What has not been confirmed is how alive John Wick actually is. That has not been confirmed. Everyone's still being kind of cagey about that. During an interview here, I'm trying to nail down the actual name here, and cannot seem to find it in this article. Jennifer Brown, EVP and head of global products and experiences at Lionsgate. There we go. Was talking about the film and talking about Ballerina and, the possibilities of the franchise moving forward. Also mentioning a video game, which I'm very excited about. What are we talking, like a like Sifu? If anyone's played Sifu, that's kind of feels like John Wick anyway. So maybe they take that vibe. So that's cool. But they did mention like, hey, we have shared that we're developing a fifth John Wick film, and then goes on to say John Wick may be dead. We are all on bated breath waiting to find out. So that's the biggest thing is like, to me anyway, spinoffs are awesome. Like Ballerina, like you want to spin off the universe and focus on different characters, cool. A John Wick straight up next entry in the core franchise, I don't think the proper setup has been done for like someone to carry the torch on that. That's got to be Keanu Reeves in that role until you properly set up someone to take that and run with it. So I'm not saying you can't have John Wick 7 and 8 and Keanu's like, nah, I'm good. I want to go, continue being the best human being on earth somewhere else. But like, that has to be him, right? Like, it's got to be it for me. John Wick 5, like, it has to have him. Otherwise, I don't see that moving forward.
Well, it's a whole movie about them, John Wick 5, the search for John, like you do it that way.
And he shows up at the last scene.
They resurrect him. Yeah, they resurrect him in his weird glass coffin, and he comes back. And that's how you do it. Star Trek has shown us the way. All right. But, yeah, I mean, they are holding on to this John Wick franchise with a tight grip around its throat. I don't believe in any of this, by the way. I don't believe that you can make a John Wick experience. I think that thing's going to crash and burn within a year of like some weird interactive world. Like, have you ever had the desire to go into some version of the Continental and have your own John Wick action fantasy play out. Like for that level of money, like I don't think so. I don't think I've ever wanted to do that. I'm confident in various parts of my personality and self that I don't need to do that. So yeah, I mean, I like interactive experiences, escape rooms, laser tag, things like that. Like, but I think this is overcomplicated. If you had made a John Wick themed laser tag course, like, yeah, I'll throw you $15 for that. Why not? Sounds great.
Video game, absolutely. Like,
absolutely.
There's natural branches for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. We need a successor to Enter the Matrix. We need something like that. So, yeah, Matt perked up at that one. He was like, "Ooh, Enter the Matrix." Yeah. So yeah, but this is like the way they've gone about this franchise is just not it. Like that Continental show was terrible. Like nobody wants to see. I'm curious about. I mean, the ballerina. We all just want to see Ana de Armas like lay some people down. That's what we're really going to see. The world of John Wick was great because it was immersive within the films. It wasn't a world that could sustain an entire IP universe. It just becomes generic assassins after a while. Like it's Keanu Reeves, and we've gotten so far away from the damn dog by this point that I don't even remember it half the time. But it was about a man and his dog and his wife, and you know, that's what appealed to us. Was not he was a superhero. It was if I lost my wife and I lost my dog, like, yeah, I'm killing everybody. Like, is the sentiment that every man understands. Like, if I lose the people I love and the animal I love, and then they even go down and just take my animal out, like, yeah, I'm killing everything. Like, I don't care. Like, that's the whole John Wick thing. But yeah, this idea that of being a superhero in this whole world and the coins and we can do a whole universe like that, I don't believe in it. But that's just me. So I don't know. I think if we come back, Keanu Reeves is only getting older. Like it's only getting harder. Like if you find some kid to come and do, like, that's the natural progression is you find some kid who can do the stuff too, and you partner him up, and you make jokes about John Wick getting old while this other killer kid is like his Damien to his Batman. And
I'd watch that.
Do that. Exactly. So would I. I mean, it's literally, I mean, Always Sunny's done an episode about this with that whole, what's that crazy franchise they have in there with Dolph Lundgren? And it's like Thunder Gun, like what they did, the Thunder Gun reboot. And it's just like, it's the son of Thunder Gun. And it's in there in a cave, and he like passes him a torch because he's dying, like the whole thing. And it's like, this is what the only thing you can do at this point with these kinds of classic franchises, testosterone action franchises. So I don't know, man. I don't know. All right. Do we need to spend any more time on this? Let's get to the good stuff. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're talking about the end of Invincible, Daredevil, and the Electric State, plus some other deeper geek stuff we got time for. Stay tuned. So, on the subject of being so back, so very back, Invincible. I mean, am I wrong? Matthew Aguilar, am I wrong? Are we not back with Invincible with this finale? I don't know anything about the Invincible comics. We've established this. So, I have no idea of the twists and turns this story can take. We got to this finale. I remember exactly where I was when I saw the Invincible Season 1 finale. And it was like a hotel room in New York. And I was supposed to be meeting people. It was the first time I'd been back to New York since the pandemic, really. And to actually have fun. The city had just opened up that weekend. But I didn't leave my hotel room until I was done that episode of Omni-Man versus Invincible. This Invincible Conquest fight was even more insane. The animation for the last couple of episodes has been off the hook. The voice work from some of the best in the business, off the work. Stephen Yeun, Sterling K. Brown, in this episode, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, if you didn't know. That was your Walking Dead buddy, Janelle. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is Conquest. Like, just insane. And again, this is like John Wick. The richness of this is it takes time sometimes. Season 2 was slow. It was a slog. But now you look and you see everything that we were building up in season 2 and why it was important. From like Mark dealing with his am I like my dad? Am I not? To Debbie's story arcs, to all that. Like, it all does come back around and come together in this show. And this was one hell of a finale and one hell of a battle. And I'm glad Invincible's on a yearly production schedule right now. And they got their Rick and Morty act together, because this is not the time. We need to be on the gas right now. This is
the one
fantastic
time that term is actually apt. I can't get mad at it, because season 2 was not it. And season 3 has really righted the ship. Now, granted, it also just goes really well hand in hand with like just how the comics played out and things like that. So, I mean, it had a really good blueprint. But they did a lot. You know, when we talked about the Invincible War and like how so much of it occurred in that one episode, I thought it would be kind of spread out, because that's typically kind of the format that most shows take. They're going to take that big event and make it, they want to explore all the nooks and crannies, right? And they really want to get the most out of it. So they'll make it 2 or 3 episodes. And seeing this episode and then tying it into the last one, I'm actually kind of glad they kept the breakneck pace of the book. I think they did a really good job, but they set up stuff in the, like, this is an episode that you will watch probably at the end of season 4 and still get stuff from, if they follow with what the comics have done. There's hints, big hints as to what is happening down the line, some big things that happen that you will probably be able to come back to this episode and understand. Like, there's a lot of recontextualizing that as more seasons come out will happen here. And I mean, just also too, this is one of the things, I mean, we talked about this with Kirkman and The Walking Dead. Like, he was always very much like, you know, there's things I want to do a little differently, or things I didn't get to do, or things that I look at when I wrote the story and I was kind of like, I might change that or whatever. And he did those in the show. I mean, some stuff changed because it was literally like, I think that's a better idea. Or he kind of looked at things differently. And the fact that we get are we getting the spoilers or no? Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that we're
this whole episode of spoilers.
The fact that we're getting Dark Blood back, and what that sets up, because that was something that Kirkman never got to do in the comic. He always wanted to. He always wanted to set up a story with Damian in the comic, and he never got the chance. That's why the character barely shows up in the books, and he always meant to get around to it and never could. And so now literally the show is like, we're going to do it. And we're going to like go on this whole side thing and do this story. So like, he's even adding new stuff. Like, that's completely new. So like, there's a lot happening here. And I really think like, this is the one time that I'm like, yeah, this one's back. They did a really good job.
Janelle, what'd you think of this finale? Because we threw several brutal things at you this week, as we tend to do.
It's just gory, but it's great. I mean, the storyline it's unbelievable. I really wish I had read these comics so that I could have enjoyed this twice, because it's great. I mean, Steven Yeun is doing such a great job. And really just every character in this is kind of finding its place. I'm very bummed about Rex, though. I really, really liked Rex. So that was a big loss. And it was just very heartfelt. It's weird because the show doesn't feel super emotional when you first start watching it. And then it becomes like incredibly wrapped up in family and love and friendship. And meanwhile, there's tons of killing and crazy, villains that come in, but it has everything. So I'm incredibly just surprised and really happy that this exists. So yeah, big fan. I feel like Matt kind of said it all.
I just like that we're getting more of my homie. What's his name? Battle Cat. What's his like?
Yeah. Give me
He
more.
just keeps
Sorry, I was
He
muted.
just keeps
Battle
turning-
Beast. Yeah.
Battle Beast, and he just keeps turning up for more, just to keep effing more F's up. Like he's just like, I want more. Kyle, we don't know what's your background with Invincible.
I've not read a ton of Kirkman's work in the comic book realm very much. I started Walking Dead and fell off of both versions of it, television and comic. I think when a lot of people did with the television series, I kind of knew what was going on because it was kind of hard to avoid when Glenn was getting beat his head in with a baseball bat and whatnot. But then with
Did you catch
Invincible,
that Easter egg in here?
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a great little Easter egg in this episode. We got to flip the script this time. Steven got to beat Jeffrey's head in, and it was great.
And then with this show, I'd never read the comics. I mean, I know we've talked about this off the podcast and stuff, which is like I've got kids. My limited time that I have free to myself, comics have kind of been one of the things that has taken more of a hit. So I try to keep up with some titles, but this was not one I was going to read after the show came out. And then when I really liked the first season, I know some people then went and read the comics to know what was going to happen. I'm somebody where if I appreciate the adaptation, I'll just keep watching the adaptation because I don't necessarily need to know. It's not that I'm against spoilers. So if I find something out, I find something out. But as Matt said, like this has done things differently. I feel like I'm going to be the rain on people's parade though with this, which is I actually kind of liked season 2 quite a bit. I think the exploration of the post-traumatic stress and everything, and with what with what Mark goes through in that season and dealing with all the multiversity of it all, I thought was really interesting. And there seemed to be a focus that I found season 3 for Invincible just did not have. There's a lot happening, and I have a very dedicated listener. His name's Scotty Cameron. Shout out Scotty, who has read all of this. He owns all the omnibuses and has told me that for the most part, they're sticking to the order to which the events happened in the comic books, which I appreciate. And I think what's really interesting to me about that is in the age of television we're in now, which you can argue maybe the last 10 years have been the best TV's ever been, where I found season 3 had some really great moments, but in terms of an actual season of television, it sort of felt rudderless, where it was like, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. And don't get me wrong, those events are incredible and amazing, but I couldn't help thinking, because I was rewatching the finale this morning, where I love the action and the violence and the callbacks to this, but it made me think of The Boys, which is also obviously another Prime Video show that does a lot of shock and awe. And as a viewer, don't get me wrong, I love the shock and awe moments, but if I'm not invested in what's going on, I start to glaze over with what's going on. And episode 7 with the Invincible War felt like a lot. It felt like a finale's worth of stuff. But then to immediately jump into this where it's like, and there's more. I went, okay, great. Can we get some of the story stuff? Because the animation action is great, unless you have Conquest pushing Mark into a bunch of PNGs in, I'm assuming, South America in this finale. So I like the action and stuff. And I think the choreography that they have with the characters is really compelling. But this season, and I'm really looking forward to what Matt said has been laid out. But in this season, it felt like a bunch of, for comic book readers, this felt like they took 8 annuals and then just adapted those, as opposed to a season of television. And like, that's what I'm looking to watch, not just a bunch of 8 anthology stories that just happen to be in the same universe. So it felt like some of the focus, which is in the earlier episodes with Mark dealing with killing Sterling K. Brown, just gets kind of pushed to the side. And then we're focusing on his relationship with Eve, which is great. And then Cecil and the whole dynamic with the Guardians of the Globe. But then the last 4, because I was reading through the wiki before I watched the finale to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I went, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. And it doesn't feel like a season of TV.
Interesting. That's a great way of like
back.
looking at it.
That's
Oh,
kind
okay.
of what
Here
I
you go.
liked
Yeah.
about
Let's
it.
get back in spice.
No, I got a hard disagree. I think that one thing I liked, like I said in mine, was I think a lot of this season pulls from the second season into more focus, which is, I think there was a theme to this season, which is the last season was Mark trying to run away from his identity and say, I'm not like my dad. I'm like a human dude. I have like a human life. I appreciate all these things about human stuff. And then he ended up freaking out and having to kill Angstrom Levy, who invaded his personal life, kind of really wrecked that on that front. And he moved away from that and said, I can't have a personal life. I can't be Mark. I got to be invincible. And I have to take it up. And then he got the Viltrumite thing thrown on his shoulders on top of that. Like now I'm responsible for basically being like standing between this world and my dad's home world. So this season was all about him trying to find his space as his own hero, as invincible, while still trying to do that thing where like pulling back, like all throughout the season in every battle, we saw Mark kind of like, and then eventually having to let go and like tear Duplicate's brother apart to get and save people and do all these killing. And then, have to deal with that constantly trying to not use that power, but being called into situations where he constantly has to. And then we get to this end of the season where, now he's up against somebody where he has to use all of that power he's been building and kind of let loose. And it's still not enough. And that's where we get to the end of the arc of this season, where if you think about where Mark was at the end of like season 1 to where he is at the end of season 3, like it's been a monumental kind of journey. He's gone psychologically from, I'm terrified of ever being the violent person I saw my father being, to being like, nah, F that. If anybody comes near my family again anymore, that's up. Like they're done. Like I'm going to take them out. And that's the way I got to be. To him beginning to learn to be like Nolan. And this is like what this season really was having to walk in your dad's shoes. He's now responsible for the planet. It's all on him. And he thought he can make all these decisions and do it differently and have all this stuff happen. But at the end of the day, he learned like no, I gotta be that guy. Like I gotta be that guy if I'm really going to keep this safe. And now like all bets are off. And for me, we're like Matt said, like there's already teases throughout this season that you have to keep track of. Yeah, because this show is a slow burn, and then things you think are minor. Like we are not talking about that episode with the immortal in that other world, but that's probably to me now one of the most important episodes, not because of all the big things that happen, but because of where this season ends. Now, all of a sudden, that Mark from that world who left Immortal to run the world seems like a possibility, because the Mark that we know has gotten to that point where he's like, no, threats must be eliminated. I must take people out. Like, that's the way it's got to be. And so we're starting to see that unfold. I don't know anything about the comics, but we now know that, like, yeah, we've done other dimensions, but also time travel is a part of this story. Like there's a big part of the story that's about futures, alternate futures, and like all of these different kind of odd statistics of when Mark breaks bad versus when Mark stays good. And like, is there even a timeline where that all on a long enough timeline, does he ever stay good? Or does he always end up in this other place? So there's all these questions. And I think it was really compelling to get in these situations to get Mark to this place where at the end, I was just a little more freaked out about my protagonist in that hospital scene. And I was like, oh man, because I don't know what's going to happen next season and where he's and how he's going to start to act. So I thought it did a good job over the season. And I thought it was less heavy-handed than season 2, where every scene slowed down. It was like, but what about my dad? I am not my dad. And it's just like, okay, bro, like we get it. Like, yeah, we get it. So I actually kind of liked the subtlety of this. And I don't think Invincible's ever going to feel as impactful as it needs to until you can sit down and watch the whole damn thing from like one long, just kind of arc to see it all play out without breakups. But yeah, I got a hard disagree. That's our grenade today.
Ooh, you never know where it's coming from.
No, you
And
do not.
I will say I really though enjoy the discussion about like how someone who enjoys the comics and is coming at it from that space is compared to someone who is viewing it not only for the first time, but as in whatever chosen medium it is, right? So if it's a movie, if it's a TV show, and just as that, and kind of separating, because to me, comic fans cannot separate that, me included. That's hard. That is very hard to separate your brain from, like that's why I had to come around on Moon Knight. When we had this big discussion, I was like, Moon Knight's a good show. It's a good show. It's not the Moon Knight show I wanted. It's not the one that I was hoping for, but it took me like half the season to like finally come to terms with that, right? Of like, okay, this is not, but this is, I can't argue that it's a good show. And I have people who aren't as into the comics as I have been on Moon Knight, and they came at it like, oh, I really like how they explained it. I really like how they went into this and they brought this. It's viewed as a show and in that medium. And it's just very hard to also separate context, right? Because for every decision that's made, someone who's kind of read ahead and stuff, same with Walking Dead, it was like you have context that other people don't, and you see things, and that is not negative or positive. It's just is. So you read it differently, right? So I just enjoy this discussion quite a bit. It was fun. It's fun to get into the nuts and bolts of all that stuff.
I mean, we're still on for season 4, right? Everybody's still in?
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Absolutely.
I also like that you brought up the comparison to The Boys, because I've been hard on this past season of Amazon's The Boys. I actually got to the point of almost not quite Walking Dead killing Glenn, but almost there. Like, and I'm very glad. I think we talked about it before of like, I'm glad that it's ending when it's ending, because I think beyond that would be like, I would probably check out. But knowing that there's an end in sight, knowing that the light, or not light, is in it, because it's still a good show. But I do kind of glaze over on some of those things. And I think Invincible does a far better job of bringing in the story elements, bringing in the character stuff, and making it mean something, even in the middle of someone getting their head bludgeoned. I still think they do a good job of highlighting that, where The Boys feels like sometimes two different shows. It's like, oh, okay, we're just going to the someone's ripping someone's arm off phase of the show. And then we're going to move back over here and give you some good character stuff for 5 minutes. And oh, someone's getting impaled. That's what The Boys feels like at this point. Invincible doesn't feel like it does that for me.
And they're dead. All right. But Invincible still, I mean, we're still in. And like I said, I'm glad that we're on a faster production schedule so we can get to season 4 quicker, because these waits and these delays.
Thank God, man.
And see what happens when you don't delay a season, Amazon. Don't ever do that dumb-ish again. Come on, man.
Yeah,
you guys really. All right. Daredevil episode 3. So Daredevil Born Again episode 3. This is where I think we saw exactly what kind of show they wanted to make the first time around. And I wasn't mad at it, but I could see also why it would wear thin after a couple episodes, and why you needed to kind of weave more of this Netflix stuff back into it. But this was as a single episode of courtroom drama with no daredeviling. Like, I thought it was still pretty damn compelling, mostly because Charlie Cox is just so good at this now, like, and can carry this. Like, I'm just watching him. Like, we just forget, like, he's pretending to be a blind guy, and he's still like a blind guy with like hella charisma, and like from the courtroom scenes to like when he's on a date, to all of that stuff. Like, he's just so good at this, and it's so good at this point at like commanding the screen and carrying something that I thought he did a good job. And I thought it was an interesting way of taking matters of the MCU and debating it in this meta fashion about, is a mass vigilante. These are not new comic book arguments, right? But it was interesting to see them presented on TV this way in a courtroom drama setting. Is a mass vigilante doing as good as a police officer, blah, 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 and then I was glad they got into the muddled aspects of it. can vigilantism go wrong? Are police always noble? Like in, kind of showing the gray areas of that. Damn, they did my boy White Tiger dirty. That was crazy, but shock ending to this episode. But if you guys were worried about this not being as violent as the Netflix thing, like I keep telling you, strap in. Just strap in. There's plenty of violence. The courtroom drama part of it. When I got to this episode and the screeners, I was like, oh, this is interesting because it's different. I mean, we had courtroom drama in the original show. Specifically, everybody remembers like the Punisher case, but that was like part of this other storyline. It didn't feel like an episodic piece of television centered around like a Law and Order style kind of thing, which is what these two episodes feel like, where Matt's both the cop and the courtroom lawyer, right? First, he's out investigating in episode 2. Then he's now doing the case in episode 3. But I dug it personally, but this could be a grenade issue. What did you guys think?
I just feel like they're building the tension, and I'm nervous about where we're going with Kingpin, because he seems like a typical politician right now, saying all the right things, and he seems like he's doing good for his city. And I'm like, okay, when is Kingpin going to Kingpin? That's kind of where I'm at. I'm excited.
Matt, what'd you think?
Look, I ain't mad at the courtroom drama, right? Because I mean, I watch this stuff on my own outside of Marvel. I love Law and Order.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, this was good. Like, here's the thing though, I can totally understand why people would be completely pissed if this was the entire show. I absolutely get it. Look, when I watch Law and Order, I know what I'm signing up for. I watch Law and Order. When you watch Daredevil Born Again, that is not what you were signing up for. But as a change of pace and as a way to work in certain elements of the character and what he's doing right now and how he's evolving and the conflict between being a vigilante and doing his day job, which is a lawyer, right? So it fits, and it's a good change of pace from everything else. So I think as these kind of one-off experiences, it works, and it makes sense. But I can totally see how, with the reports and everything saying that this was essentially what the series was from beginning to end, and this is kind of the vibe they're going for, boy, those comments would have been gnarly. I can understand it. As for the big thing that happens, and I love the comments. Like, literally, we start talking about Daredevil, and the worst ending in TV history comes up. Zach G, a great comment. Look, that one is, I'm conflicted, because yes, it does feel like they did that character, they did White Tiger dirty. It feels like that necessarily, I don't think that was earned yet. Now, do I think it would have been earned later in the series? Yes. And I think it would have been something that makes total sense if there's other characters that hop into that suit and that mantle. It makes sense where we go. And honestly, more people are familiar actually with them than necessarily they are him. So in the comics anyway. So like, that does make total sense. But I think here it was a shock. And it does work as a shock of, hey, you never know. Everybody could vote. Well, except for Matt and Wilson. They're not going to die. But everybody else can die. So I think it works on that level. But if I'm looking at it after the fact, I go, I don't think you earned that yet. I don't think that you went through all that. I think you needed another episode or two before you earn that moment. And then it also works as a shock, but it also works as, oh, you thought that character got their due. They got a real arc. I don't think that was the case here yet.
I've heard this argument, but I disagree. I think sometimes we forget, like, a show is measuring certain things. And like, I think the White Tiger character was a hard one because it's obviously supposed to be a metaphor for Matt and Daredevil and this vigilantism and what it is and what it means. But they were going to take the character out. The character wasn't going to have a long arc. It wasn't like, this is the difference between like the Netflix show and this. Like, every character in the Netflix show had like a 4-episode arc or something. This doesn't. Like, So it was always going to be this kind of limited arc. And it's like, what do you do with that? You can't take an established character because that would be like really traumatic and make people ask all these questions if you brought somebody back that we already knew and some other masked person in second tier, third tier, and then blew their brains out. So you introduce this character. We don't ever actually see White Tiger doing any white tigering. We hear he has this amulet. We see him fighting in a subway briefly, fight that doesn't even go very gracefully. But I get that because you needed a stand-in for a masked hero, one that is not like so important that everybody's like, you took my favorite Marvel character and killed and did this to him. Like, White Tiger is not going to cause that much of an uproar. It's still a chance for you to do representation because he's a Puerto Rican character played by a fantastic late great Puerto Rican actor. And I don't think people would have cared if the actor wasn't as good as he was playing like Hector.
But yeah, but that's not, man, I don't want to, if you cast a Spanish actor in a role, I don't want you to give them 3 episodes and then kill them and it doesn't feel earned. Like, great that you stuck them in there. Props for showing up to the party, but you didn't do anything. You don't give props for that. Like, no, I'm not giving you, like, I don't give them a pass for that. Put somebody else in then. They made the decision. I agree with you.
But I don't want to feed the trolls because this is what the trolls have been saying about this whole era of Disney Plus, and I don't want to feed them. Empty representation is not a good thing. Throwing somebody in there as like a token to get a certain demographic and then immediately blowing their brains out is not the way to go about this. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Look, every squirrel finds a nut, right? I mean, I'm not saying that like that part is correct. That part is correct. Now, those idiots also want to go, well, that means we got to keep everything white and everyone has to look the same. I'm not saying go there either, right? Like, there's a freaking line here. Use common sense. But what I am saying is that doesn't work for me. So I get the intent, but the intent was great. I give you credit. And I understand that, like, you got to put like a C, D tier hero in there, right? Yes, I understand even that logic to a degree. But then then it's up to you to make whatever episodes he's in matter and land with me to where I feel that when you take him off the board, it's earned. And they didn't earn it. I don't care what their pacing was. I don't care what their excuse was. They didn't land the plane. And I feel like
I think it's going to be debatable.
To the carpet for that.
I think right now it's hard to debate because we're acting like the story's over, but this is an episodic thing, but it is a serialized thing.
Absolutely.
So I think we have to see, like, Foggy. Foggy is in this show throughout it, even though Foggy gets taken out in the first episode. There's something, I mean, even in, is this episode the one? This is the episode where they do the toast, right? Where he's toasting with So he's in this episode. So we got to see what the impact of, like you said, White Tiger is a bigger legacy in Marvel lore than this. So we got to see what the impact of this death is and like what comes of it, because there could be more to this that comes from this. I don't think this is the end of this happening, because first we got to figure out, obviously there's the triggering image at the end to set up a red herring with the Punisher that I don't think any of us believes is the Punisher. And then there's also like, what does this impact? Because they did so much with this trial to say who this person was and what impact he has. They even threw us a Miles Morales Easter egg because he like apparently saved Miles's dad. And so we got to see what it means that the death. I don't think the death will just be nothing. Like, I think it'll be something. So it's kind of,
and I wasn't saying that from I haven't seen the rest of the season, right? So I have no context for like what comes next. And I understand, like, to a degree, like, you can kind of see where certain things are going. And I think that's fine. It still matters in the moment. If you're going to talk about characters and whether they get their due on screen, it just taking this piece, because that's all we've been shown. So that's all we have to immediately go on, right? I can't say that they landed his plane very well. If they recontextualize it as the show goes on and make it matter and mean something different, great. Then I will be like, oh, they landed the plane. As of right now, on that 3 episodes
you can be sure they landed his brains on that street.
So rude.
All right, we got to get, before Janelle has to go, let's talk a little Electric State. Did you get to watch any of this, Janelle?
Yes, I did. I started this and I cannot wait to keep watching. I am all about this so far.
Ooh,
First of all, it's the
you are like
90s, so it's speaking my little language. It feels like my childhood. Um, I have not gotten to Chris Pratt yet in there. I mean, I saw like a little cameo. So I didn't even know he was in it. I was surprised because they weren't really, to me, showing a lot of him like in the imagery and stuff that I was looking up. Oh, kitty cat. Sorry. Um, so yeah, I think this is great. Like this is so far really like it set off like really fast, like got to the storyline. I'm intrigued right away. They set everything up for me so I understand the context and what's happening. And I really appreciate that because sometimes it just really takes forever to explain. Very clear what's happening, what did happen, and the goal, like to find her brother. So far, I'm loving it. What are you guys thinking?
I think the Russo brothers loved 80s and 90s movies like I did as a kid. I think it's dumb as hell. I'm about halfway through the movie. I think it's pretty dumb. But I also think every Netflix movie is the same, in which it's like, this is harmless, but not great, but harmless, but also not great. And it's just like, by the time I'm done, everyone, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a movie. That was a movie. There were people in it, and it was mildly fun. And it's like, I think this is where B movies, genre movies have gone to live now. It's just on Netflix, like straight up Netflix and a couple other streamers, but Netflix is doing it like as a real mainstream push of content. But it's just a, B movie, genre movie, sci-fi comedy movie. And yeah,
Probably
they spend a lot of money on these. These guys like to throw a lot of money at stuff. The animatronics, the visual effects, the amount of robots and stuff in this, it's pretty crazy.
Beautiful.
So
I think it's beautiful.
yeah, it is. But the storyline is very kind of like predictable, in the dialogue and all that. Like it's Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown's in her mom era. Like it's kind of nuts, but it's harmless. And like, yeah, it's a good Friday, Saturday night watch if you want to sit down and check this out. But yeah, the Russo brothers, I mean, they need like a good writer is who they need to hook up with. They just need a writer collaborator that's just like their guy who they work with. And, they need that like, yeah, I don't know who, but they need that person.
Oh, that was rough. That was a little rough.
Did you watch it, Matt?
Yeah, no, I'm over halfway. I'm almost done. And man, I'm with Janelle. Like, I love this thing. Like, I stopped to do the show.
Me too.
Otherwise, I would have watched it all the way through because it was like it hooked me, right? I was like, oh, I'm in on this. And also too, I'm about split on Russo brothers things outside of Marvel, right? So like, I really like the Gray Man. I ended up really digging that movie.
I decided I gotta go watch that after I finish this. I was like, I gotta go back and watch the Gray Man.
Now, granted, I like the franchise, right? Then like that thing's been also based on like, movies and books and things like that. But like, I just really liked their interpretation. Ryan Gosling was great in that. Like they have a sense of action and comedy, and I think it really works, right? And in here, this is exactly that, but with actually a bit more kind of hard on its sleeve than that movie, obviously, because you're not dealing with so much kind of like, John Wickish action moments from moment to moment. The stuff between Millie Bobby Brown and Captain Carson, I really liked. I really enjoyed that dynamic. I thought the setting it in the 90s was always gonna, like, that was an interesting choice, because typically when you think of robots and technology and stuff and this kind of thing, right, this war of the robots, it's something like iRobot, or it's something set in the far future where you're dealing with all this crazy tech. I love the kind of, retro vibes. I mean, it really feels like something straight out of my era. And, it's fun. I like the chemistry between them. Yeah, there's some really random like cameos, like Jason Alexander's in this movie. I thought his part, it's small, but like I liked it, right?
That was funny. I didn't know it was him first. That was funny.
Yeah, it was great. He just pops up, and I was like, "Oh, you're the jerk." That's great. But I really just like the very simple story about at its heart, right, between a brother and a sister, and that whole thing, and through the technology, the fact that they're communicating. It's almost like that Bumblebee aspect, right? When the early movies, when you didn't have a voice box, so like you're dealing with that stuff and trying to communicate. There's something fun about it. I mean, when the robot goes over to the I forget what the devices are called that they wear, the VR like devices where they're projecting, their faces. I forget what they're called, but he finds someone that's, they really lean into like the almost Wall-E side of things, right? Where like, what if we just gave our entire lives to these things and just became kind of vegetables, being these vessels in the world and just living your life virtually. And like, the robot sees that and he's trying to kind of process it, and there's like nothing we can do, and he puts the blanket. There's some really great moments in this. I dug this, man. I'm gonna go finish it after the show is done. I really dug it. So yeah, I'm about split on Russo Brothers outside of Marvel, but this one is a win for me. I'm hoping it lands. I guess my big theme today is landing the plane. I hope it lands the plane.
You're crazy. Janelle, you have to run.
I think I have to go save a nap, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Well, thank you for hopping on.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to leave it to Kyle I'm going to just whatever he says. That's my opinion.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Oh, no.
Kyle.
I'm going to be watching. I'm going to watch. I'm in the chat.
You are the film realist, buddy.
Oh.
Is this the best film of the week?
No, it's not. I mean, the oxymoron is it's a Netflix original film. So like, come on, like let's set the bar at a different expectation. The movie of the week is Novocaine, just for the record. Or, I mean, Black Bag is good as well. So I started this and I fell asleep and then had to rewatch some of the stuff. It's really interesting. You brought up the writing though, Kofi, because what I find so interesting about the Russo brothers is this is Marcus and McFeely, who they've been working with since Winter Soldier. And we didn't bring it up when we were talking about Brave New World, but every movie, I want this to be gone, Matt, which is, well, we were inspired by the Winter Soldier. As in, you just watched it and then you wrote a script that wasn't as good. Like, can we stop that now, please?
Same.
But I mean, it's tough. I think B movie is a really adequate point, Kofi, whereas there is a hollowness to a lot of the Netflix movies, and similar to Matt, I had fun with The Gray Man. I mean, it looks like it was shot through pantyhose, which is unfortunate because the cinematography is just a disaster. And I'm just a little over Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt in stuff. Like, I don't feel like that character, it was so perfect for Star-Lord, that measure of the way that James Gunn wrote those scripts and what Pratt did in bringing Star-Lord to life, where it just feels like, well, this is what people want from me, so he does it. And don't get me wrong, child of the 90s, I love this aesthetic, but there is a sci-fi channel-ness to this where it felt like this would have been a really great mini series on that channel. But in terms of expecting this to be like premiere or prestige, like, I mean, it's Netflix. So the expectation for that is kind of baffling if that's what you were looking for. So it's fun and it's fine. I think the worst thing that I would say is these movies are entertaining in the moment, but they're very disposable. That's what I found with a lot of the Russo brothers work. And quite frankly, what I think they need to do, like, they need to go and direct the Community movie. Like, get back to their roots with something that or modern audiences wouldn't even expect from them, right? Like, they became known for Community and Arrested Development, and then obviously the MCU exploded just when they hit it. But these grand CGI fests, like we were talking about budgets, this costs $320 million.
Yeah,
it doesn't look like it. Like, obviously there's a lot of visual effects and stuff, and I credit anybody using practical elements, because as somebody who grew up on the Star Wars trilogy, practical elements, they age a lot better because CG ages real quick. So it's fine, but it is, to me, it was emblematic of something I read recently where it talked about when they're making these Netflix movies and even some of the shows, they expect the audience to not really be paying attention. And I think for the
I saw
most
that
part,
article. Yeah, I
yeah,
saw some
and
of that.
to some degree, I think you can kind of do that with the electric state. There's some interesting ideas, but a lot of this feels old hat at this point, right? Like we talked to you, Matt, you brought up the Wally elements. Yeah, Wally had that statement about humanity and being brought everything. And then it was then a part of Ready Player One, which was just Cameo Fest City. So this, I mean, it should be on the poster larger, which is it's a movie from Netflix. So whatever that expectation you have is, I think it would be safe to say it's going to meet it. But I have thoughts on Daredevil, so I hope we go back there because I didn't say what I thought of episode 3 at all.
Oh, did we leave you out of that?
That's okay. Janelle had to go. It's all good.
No, why don't you get your thoughts off? Because I think we're going to push Absolute Superman to next week because I want to talk to Janelle about Absolute Superman. So I think we're going to push that. So why don't you just get your thoughts off about Daredevil, and then we can head into Matt's agenda and wrap this up.
Perfect. Well, I disagree with everything Matt had to say about episode 3, jokingly and sort of not at the same time, which is interesting because obviously we talked about me not reading any of Invincible, but it's the opposite for Daredevil, which is I've read all of the Charles Soule run, which heavily inspired Born Again season 1. And episode 3 to me is it's interesting because obviously we're learning more about what the production was for this show as it's coming out. And I am one of the fortunate people where I have watched all 9 episodes, but rewatching episode 3 for this, and I was going to watch it anyways, because you got to help those numbers. I mean, not that it needs it. Clearly it's doing very well, but episode 3 of Daredevil to me is such a perfect distillation of what works about this character in comic book form or in any other media, which is you give us the courtroom drama. Obviously, Matt Murdock is a lawyer and him not doing cases would be weird, but where we left him at the start of this season, dealing with the ramifications of that Catholic guilt he has for trying to kill Bullseye, and each episode sort of just continuing to be that prison shiv into this is the world you're living in. And particularly with where this season seems to be going, where you have a corrupt politician. I don't see any real world connections to that whatsoever. So we're just going to move that to the side. But then with all of these statements on police brutality and abuse of power being laid throughout all of the stuff we've had so far, to have, and this is what I love so much about the duality of Matt Murdock as a character and Daredevil, is he is desperately trying to work within the system through legal means. And I remember when we got the streamers for this, Kofi, watching it in a chunk, but getting to episode 3 and not having an actual idea of what the verdict was going to be for the court case, because the world that Daredevil inhabits, I could have definitely seen like all the evidence that they were, I mean, people perjured themselves and whatnot, but there's a world in which Hector was found guilty, and that's not a sense of justice. And we would be sitting here as viewers being like, what the hell? Like, he's a good guy. And the whole concept of the vigilantes working within the system is a massive part of Charles Soule's run of Daredevil. And it's really interesting to see how they're bringing those elements in. But where I disagree with Matt more so is I think through the 3 episodes and having a stand in for what Matt has experienced with this system of being a vigilante, and where we see, and what I think they do such a great job of building to us who Hector is as a person. And the reason Matt is Daredevil is because the system is broken. That even at the end of a win, that for me, I remember shouting at my TV, like, yes, he's not guilty, as they're laying out all the charges for the final verdict. And regardless of this being episode 3 or episode 1, however it was originally conceived, it's a win to sell Matt having success in that world, but then to have that horrible reminder, nah, baby, this is Kingpin's New York. And what we get with that is obviously the brutality of the police not seeing anything wrong with what they're doing. And of course it's not Punisher, but we know in the trailer that Frank's going to show up. What is this relationship going to be? And all of these things, Matt is no longer Daredevil, right? And as we've seen in lots of different versions of this story, and this is not to be critical of it being something we've seen before or a rehash, which is I love Matt trying to do the right thing within the system, and all of these pieces of evidence being like, dude, you got to put the horns back on and get the red suit, because you're doing your best, but the city will fail you because you're only doing half of who you are. So I think it works really well in doing that. And I'm curious to see what the reception is as we go through, which is all the building blocks, seeing how everything is happening. And, oh, Wilson Fisk is doing something a little more shady, or he's deliberately going out and being like, I don't agree with this being not guilty. Like, the system failed. So I like the challenge of Matt trying to do things the right way. And obviously we know at the end of the day, he's got to suit up because sometimes the system fails you.
Agreed. I really like the point about him winning the case, but then the immediate like reality check of things. So because I think that's a great point. I just wish it was someone else in that spot then, because you made a really good point about like he's supposed to be a stand-in for Matt and Daredevil, and I feel like he is a stand-in, meaning you could stand 20 people in that spot, and I have the same type of connection with them because I don't think they made
Finn
me
Jones's
care
Iron
about
Fist,
the
that's who you
character.
wanted.
Well, I don't think they made me care about Hector. I don't know. I know practically nothing about Hector as a person other than the very surface elements before he dies. And so I feel like you could put Dan Krasinski in there and it like has the same effect because I don't feel a connection to him before that. But I do love, because I think you're right. I think the contrast there works really well. I just, from like a character perspective for him, I just don't think it quite landed with me. But I think you're right. Absolutely. The like juxtaposition there, I think is really well done.
All right. Well, there you go. That is Daredevil Born Again. Sorry, Kyle, didn't know we hadn't let you get your
No worries.
Cut you off,
there.
man. That sucks.
No, it's all good.
We're way out of time, but Matt, why don't you get off your agenda and take us on out of here?
Absolutely. So WWE 2K25 is now, right now, as we're talking, officially out in the wild. I've been had a chance to play it. You can check out my full review of the game on Comic Book. It's live right now. We'll have a bunch of other things coming from it as well. But this one kind of continues the last 3 years of, they really kind of created a renewed and solid foundation for gameplay a couple years ago, and then they've just kind of been refining it, adding things in, but that core engine and that core wrestling gameplay between the ropes is outstanding. It's so fun to just literally play a match. Doesn't even matter what type of match it is, triple threat, steel cage, whatever. It's just really fun to play. The gameplay smooth. They keep adding new things to do. So like this one of the big things is adding barricade elements. So like you could always throw people into the barricade, but now you can like climb on top of it, you can balance on it, you can dive from it, you can do all kinds of things. So they keep adding new ways to interact with the environment. And then the other, this is if you have been paying attention to wrestling over the past couple years, the Bloodline has been one of the, biggest storylines in wrestling during that time. And this entry is very much a Bloodline heavy entry. It is the showcase mode is all about the Samoan dynasty and the Bloodline saga, key matches from not even just those last few years, but bringing in Sika and Alpha and all these other kind of matches from the past and bringing those into a new scope. That's really well done. The other big thing as far as additions to actual gameplay is intergender matches. So now you can mix and match the wrestlers however you want. And if you don't think I automatically put Becky Lynch in with The Rock and hit him with a manhandle slam, taking out all of my Cody Crybaby frustrations out, I did that. I did exactly that. That was like one of the first things I did. So that part's really fun. The Bloodline rules match that was added is insane because literally it replicates the WrestleMania 40 whole thing about you could have your Bloodline members run in, but you can also have your own reinforcements run in. So at one point, you're just getting bodied by you're just getting beaten down by 4 people at a time. And then all of a sudden you get your reinforcements in and it's like this there's so many people in the ring and weapons flying it's insanity. So like that mode works really well. The other big mode is the island, which is in the other 2K games. It's all in all of the sports games, especially NBA 2K. And it has been met with criticism in some of those other games for kind of being like, you know, a little bit of a, you gotta, if you want to get some of the best stuff and things, you got to pay real money, right? And they bring the island here. That's actually not my biggest issue with the game, because you can spend money, you can add, you know, masks, hats, clothes, all this other stuff. There's just nothing to do once you're in the island. So like, you create a character, me and Ember created a character together, right? And she's awesome, and it's fun to walk around the island and interact with stars and do quests. But like, there's literally almost nothing else to do there. Like when you go and try and match make with other people to do matches within the mode, it's spotty. I couldn't get it to work as much as I wanted to. And also it's just different types of matches that you can play in any other mode. The quests are fun, and there's actually some great dialogue, but they're done through like these, it's not cutscenes, or it's not even using like the 3D game engine. It's using like these 2D portraits, and it's just not really well done. So like, on top of what is there is not great, there's just not a lot. Like, you can just spend money and buy clothes for your person, but you can literally earn all that in other modes and have way more fun. So that is my one big that brings the game down to me, because like, if you're going to introduce a new mode, make it fun, right? And in its current state, there's just not much to it. So it needs another year to make that thing compelling. But my GM, my Rise, all of the other modes kick, man. This is a great entry. Just if you were putting all your hopes on the island, it's not going to do it. So you can check out my full review on Comic Book, but that is my agenda suite.
That'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kyle, for coming on the show and hanging out with us, Mr. Kyle Noranya.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of the Film Realist podcast. Go be sure to check out the Film Realist. It is a podcast by a nobody that is hopefully for somebody, and that somebody could be you. So if you don't think we get to cinema over here, this is a great place to go. And thank you for hopping on with us, Kyle, man. I know it's early in the morning. I know you're not feeling well today. You got kids. You got a whole bunch of stuff to do. So we appreciate you being here.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, my son tried to make several appearances during
that happens. You got to lock a door. You got to lock a door and keep them downstairs. All right. So I'm going to go because I got to do the same thing. It is still spring break around here, and hopefully springtime is coming and seasonal depression is fading away for all of you. We are Comic Book Nation. You can find us on your favorite podcast platforms and on our YouTube page. We will be back next week where more content will be dropping. Things are heating up, and so we will be here to talk about all of it. Thank you guys in the live chat for getting up early this morning and hanging out with us. We love all our live show listeners and commenters. You guys really do keep us going week to week. So thank you. And shout out to Janelle Wheeler, who had to hop off early, take care of mom duties. We are saving our absolute Superman talk. Don't worry, Janelle. We saved the trauma for you for next week. We didn't. We wanted to make sure to hold on to it. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure to hold on to that for you. So we did. We are Comic Book Nation again, and I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, Matthew Aguilar, Kyle Noranya. I just butchered it. Noranya. Oh my God. Anyway.
Noranya.
I was trying to be funny and dramatic, and I just got tongue-tied instead. Thank you guys for hopping on, boys. We are out of here. Peace.